should be part of the meeting as well. We have no secrets, and this is an important discussion for WILF members to engage. So I will say that I do know that Joan Goddard is celebrating a big anniversary, and I would appreciate it if Joan Goddard would come on video to say, because I believe she has to leave now for her big celebration. And me, as a kind of three-time loser, so to speak, I would love to hear Joan's beautiful announcement. Joan, can you come on camera to tell us why you're leaving the meeting now?
She's already
Joan
left us.
Goddard.
She's already left us.
Oh, well, Joan Goddard is celebrating her wedding anniversary, and I think it's many decades. So she had emailed me earlier that she was having a family Zoom to celebrate her wedding anniversary. Uh, so just in framing the discussion, because we do have a hard stop at 4:30. We set up the meeting for 90 minutes. So I'm glad we could complete the celebration within an hour. George knows I love the 1 hour meeting. But given what is going on in Ukraine, I don't see how we as members of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom could end this important political event without talking about where we go from here. And I'd like to ask Robin Lloyd to tell about the demonstration she went to today in Vermont. It's a different city from Burlington. So Robin, would you be willing to kick us off with 3 minutes, please? We want to
Okay.
keep the comments to 3 minutes. Thank you, Robin.
Yeah. Okay. So it was a very, very cold. We were just in front of the State House. It was, as usual, hard to hear the speakers, but our Representative Peter Welch spoke very much in favor of course, the Ukrainian people, isn't everyone? And very much in support. What troubled me was in support of sending more military weapons to Ukraine. I feel right now that each day it becomes harder to move back from an all-encompassing war, all-encompassing maybe the other nations next to the Russian border, sending more weapons, cutting off Russia, communication with Russia so that we know what they're thinking over there. I think we're in a very, very, very difficult situation right now, very depressing and very hard, really, even to frame the questions at a rally like that. I didn't get a chance to speak, but apparently Democratic Socialists of America spoke, and they spoke against NATO, saying that NATO was an expansive organization that that Russia saw as threatening, and that was one of Russia's main concerns, that the Ukraine not join NATO. And I think that needs to be our stand in WILF as well, and it is in international WILF. For example, I'm looking at the website that WILF says, "Say no to NATO." WILF sees no role for NATO in our security. The military spending of NATO countries accounts for 3/4 of the world military spending, money that could better be spent on human security through healthcare, education, and social support programs. Women suffer the most from the effects of war through both the sex industry, trafficking, displacement, and widowhood. Yes, think of that, widowhood. Um, but women are not yet victims. They can and do play a role in conflict prevention, conflict resolution, and peace building. And I would just like to end by saying International WILF has had a long time strong relationship with women from Ukraine, perhaps more with Ukraine than from Russia. I remember being in the New York office, and there was a young woman there who was coming on as an intern from Ukraine. And so I think we should look as much as we can on the website of International WILF and Madeline Reese and her efforts to break out and speak to people on both sides. It would be wonderful if there'd be a way of bringing the Russian and Ukrainian
Robin, you're
women
nearly at 5
together.
minutes. I'm really sorry. It's a
Yeah,
horrible thing for me to do
yeah,
that,
no,
but
I'm done. Just bringing the group, those groups together and have a huge webinar that we can all hear both sides talking, not for more war, but how to make peace. Thank you.
Well, George, each speaker has 3 minutes. So if you could give people the 1 minute warning and mute them. What Robin had to say was very important, and I would appreciate it, Robin, if the link that you sent me to the Wilf 2008 statement of no NATO, if you could post that link in the chat
Okay.
so that everybody can see that important statement. I already posted it on Facebook, thanks to you sending it to me, as well as the statement from the UK section of WILF that says no NATO. Now we're taking a stack, good people, but we do have with us a national board member who is also co-chair of the Disarm in Wars Committee, Ellen Thomas. So Ellen, could you say a few words in terms of the Disarm in Wars Committee? Because I think some of the new members of the branches may be willing to join that issue committee. Ellen Thomas, please.
Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate it. Yes, you're all welcome to come to one of our Disarm and Wars Committee meetings. We're going to actually have one this evening. What time is it now? It's 4 o'clock. So it will be 3.5 hours from now, depending on where you are at the time. And we are working, of course, on ending the whole nuclear era and have been working on that for quite some time. And also on stopping the killer robots and killer drones. And we are very interested in having members of these new branches come and join us, not just to see what we're all about, but actually get actively involved with us. We really would appreciate having some new members of the Disarm Committee, because the more new members we have, the more effective we're going to be and the more we'll learn from each other. And Robin was a co-chair of the Disarm Committee up until recently. And Cheryl Spencer is a co-chair, and we're in the process of looking for 1 or 2 new co-chairs. I'm thinking about resigning as a co-chair, continuing with the committee and the work, but just not being, I've been doing it for 15 years and it's time for some new blood. So if you all get interested in it, please. If I will put the link to this evening's meeting in the chat, and you can click it and join the meeting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. And looking forward to meeting you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ellen. Given the situation and the widening war, and even Biden letting the words, it would be a third world war if NATO engaged with Russia. I think many of us should probably show up at the meeting tonight. So please put the information in the chat. I will definitely be there to hear more. There's a question in the chat about whether or not there is a wolf section in Russia. And while someone is raising their hand to answer that question because you've gone to the Wolf International website to see if there is such a section, I will say that in Ukraine, after speaking with Madeline Reese, who is with the International Secretary based in, I believe, Geneva, Switzerland, Wolf is truly an important international organization that has existed for over 106 years. There are very few organizations that can make that claim. The NAACP, which was founded in 1909, a few years before Wolf was founded, was also supported by Jane Addams, who is kind of on record as a mover and founder, pusher of Wolf. She was also with ending racism by being a part of the founding conference of the NAACP in 1909. Jane Addams was also part of the American Friends Service Committee founding, which happened a little after Will. So Jane Addams was an amazing woman that Will can claim. And we actually have a Jane Addams branch. So if you don't live in any of the areas where we're building branches, you can always join the Jane Addams branch. But we are building branches in the South. So everybody who is here from the South is in a branch or in a branch that's forming. So Ellen, we really appreciate you letting us know about the meeting today. Are there any more comments about the situation in Ukraine?
I have a question from someone in the San Francisco branch. How can we stop thinking in terms of sides and rather look for similar needs that need to be met? Communicate this far and wide.
Who is that? Is that Betty?
DJ Bowler.
Well, could that person come on camera and speak and say what they're saying? You have 3 minutes. We need to hear your voice. I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
I'm not sure if they're still here.
I'm
Yes,
here.
she's here.
Yeah. Well, I'm being aware of competitiveness, our culture, our society riddled with the idea of competitiveness, of competition, of there being winners and losers. And I think we've had enough of it. Where the earth is in kind of an emergency condition, or rather, at least the world is, and it's putting the earth into apparently uncomfortable conditions with global warming and with the military being the greatest polluter there is, and with the resources going into it that are needed elsewhere. But we all know that. But I find myself thinking about being stuck in the competitive frame of mind. There's a football field, a practice football field right near me. And I see the guys there being trained to bat into each other. I just, I think we've had enough of it, and that we would benefit from exploring more fully how to work together. And I think that's in the cards anyway, so we might as well get at it.
Well, could you please pronounce your name and show us what your shirt says? Because I see the top word is slavery.
I,
So
I
what
forgot
does your
I had
shirt
it
say?
on. My name is Decha Bowler, and this is a Wilk shirt actually, and it says, slavery is the legal fiction that a person is property. I'm trying to read backwards here.
Oh, corporate personhood is legal
Legal,
fiction
legal fiction.
that property
Corporations, property is people, are people.
property is a person.
Right.
That's a great shirt. I'd like to get one. Well, thank you so much. What branch are you with?
San Francisco.
Oh, great. Thank you. I love San Francisco. Thank you so much for coming on camera and sharing your words of wisdom.
Well, glad to be here, and congratulations on your establishing and building a branch.
Well, yes, we're going to keep building more and more all across the South, because the South will rise again to challenge the inequities in the United States. As the South goes, so goes the nation. We believe that down here. So is there anyone else who has a comment or a question? George, do you see anything in the chat?
I do not.
Uh,
There
well,
is your response. There isn't currently a section in Russia. That's responses in the chat.
okay. Well, let me just say about the Ukraine network. Madeline Reese with the International Secretary has informed us that there was a network of women in Ukraine standing up to the madness, and that they were all able to get out safely and get over into Poland. And so that was good news. And just in the spirit of transparency and full disclosure, George Friday and I will be meeting with Madeline Reese on Tuesday to talk about developing a conflict resolution process as part of the International Congress, which will be meeting in July of this year, that Jan Quarterman mentioned, that we will all have an opportunity to attend, because it will be virtual. And I would also like to ask Rebecca Irby, who is a new member of WILF and an expert on the TPNW. And because the threat of nuclear weapons has been raised in this Ukraine Russia conflict, I would like for Rebecca to take a few minutes to describe to us what the TPNW is. And we're asking people to keep it to 3 minutes, Rebecca, but if you need a minute or two more, we want people to understand that there is a treaty prohibiting nuclear weapons that the US and none of the nuclear powers have signed on to. So Rebecca, could you please share that important information with us? Rebecca, you need to unmute yourself, and you're not on camera either.
I'm not able to be on camera, but thank you. It's really incredible seeing everyone that's here, and thank you for inviting me to speak.
Thank you. We need to hear about the TPNW, Rebecca. So I know you're an expert on it. So can you tell everybody exactly what that is?
The TPNW is the treaty prohibiting nuclear weapons, and it's a landmark treaty that's really incredible and has a lot of momentum behind it. and it's connected and intersectional. And the reason it's so powerful is because of the way that it's connecting different groups, and the divestment campaigns that are behind it and connected to it have real teeth. And it's difficult to see at the moment, but there are groups all over the world working on how we're going to disarm. And I think in connection with and looking at what we're talking about with NATO, and I think I saw something in the chat that someone mentioned, really speaking to the women on the ground in Ukraine and understanding how we can work with them. And I understand this idea about not wanting to talk about these different sides. We need to start looking intersectionally and seeing how all of these issues are interconnected. It's not one extreme or the other. And things like the TPNW are really great instruments and things for us to look at how policy activism and direct action and people coming together intersectionally working together is really working in the world. Was there anything else that you wanted me to speak on, Teresa?
I know that it took 50 countries for it to go into force in January of 2021. Can you say where the number stands now?
I believe it's at 54, but I haven't checked in a few weeks. But yes, you're correct. It took 50 countries to, so 122 countries signed the treaty, but it took 50, once 50 countries ratified, which that means that they went and they changed their laws and they updated their constitutions to enact this treaty. So once 50 countries did that, now the treaty is in effect, is what it's called. It's called entering into force. And now it is a part of international law. So, and that's why these divestment campaigns are able to now start activating, because nuclear weapons are considered illegal in the same way that chemical weapons or biological weapons are considered illegal. And no country, institution wants to be connected to weapons that are illegal. They're actually not allowed to. So they have to start divesting their money from them. And because companies are so international now, it's having a very big effect pretty quickly.
Well, that's very important information. Now, there's a question in the chat about the Plowshares Fund. And so,
And Steve Smith has his hand up and has had it up for a minute.
well, thank you, George. We could hear from Steve Smith, and then I'll answer the question about the Fannie Lou Hamer branch application to the Plowshares Fund. Go ahead, Steve Smith.
Well, I think it's very important that we not side with either NATO or Russia. And I'd like to show some signs that show that some friends of mine displayed at the WILF demonstration in Detroit a week ago. Can I show those signs? I showed them earlier.
Please. And by the way, Rebecca Irby is in the Detroit branch. So this would be interesting to you, Rebecca. George, could you make Steve capable of sharing his signs?
It's done.
Oh, wonderful. Steve, read the signs, please.
I can't. Can people see them?
Yes. Put them up again.
Okay, hold on a second. I'm having trouble with my computer. Give me a second here.
They were up a minute ago.
I got to
A
figure out.
second ago, I should say. Well, while Steve is getting the signs up, Regina, I believe Sneed, asked did Wolf apply for a Plowshares Fund? And I would say that there were several applications that went in from Will. Uh, um, the Fannie New Hamer branch. Uh, there you go. So you want to read the signs.
Well, one shows two dinosaurs, one NATO in the US, the other Russia, and they're tyrannosauruses. And it says, we can't side with either side. They're both gobbling up the world. Had I had my choice, I would have also added a sign about Iraq in 2003, showing that it's no different from what the Russians are doing. And the other says, no to the.
You want me to read the exact language, Steve? You said earlier it was hard for you to read it.
Yeah, please, would somebody else read it?
Okay, the dude with the gloves with the two dinosaurs, it says Russian capitalism, imperialism, US NATO capitalism, imperialism, each of the dinosaurs. Can't humanity do better than this? Why do we let these monsters keep destroying lives and the earth itself? Time's up for this system. The other one says, no to Russian invasion, stop US NATO expansion. Don't be played into supporting one imperialist versus another. Russian versus all, revolution versus all imperialist empires and war criminals. And there's a picture of the earth, and I can't tell what's happening around the earth.
Well, I lived in Detroit on a couple of occasions. So those are probably some of my lefty radical friends. I can't see who they are, but I will try to find out. Maybe Steve, you and I can talk later. But the Fannie Lou Hamer branch has a fiscal sponsorship of the Southern Anti-Racism Network. The Plowshares Fund set up a special fund called Equity Rises, and it's to engage people of color and demographics of people who don't normally receive what is generally money to a pretty much all white peace movement. Well, Black people have been fighting for peace and freedom for a very long time. And Plowshares is acknowledging that this year by setting up a fund for $1 million, which will all be given away by June to 15 to 20 applicants. And the Southern Anti-Racism Network applied to the fund on behalf of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch second annual Human Rights Conference. So you saw the picture of our first annual Human Rights Conference, where we have a concept note into the Plowshares Equity Rises Fund for $50,000 to fund 1 year of organizing, with the centerpiece of that being organizing in support of the TPNW, the treaty prohibiting nuclear weapons. So in January of 2023, the second anniversary of the TPNW will take place. And this December, on December 10th, we hope to have a face-to-face conference in Atlanta at the Sonesta Atlanta Airport North Hotel with at least 100 participants. And we have invited members of the we've invited members of the Black Congressional Caucus to speak on the panel after hearing from people like Rebecca Irby and Patrick O'Neill. Patrick O'Neill recently got out of prison for standing up to nuclear weapons. And he's a good friend of mine. He lives in Garner, North Carolina, and he's already agreed to speak at the conference in December. So we will have long-time Plowshares folk at the conference in December. So we need to raise enough money so that we can do it in person. But we're at the close of our meeting today. So we want to give everyone a chance to save the chat. George, please save the chat for me because I can't do it on this Chromebook. I can't figure out how. But we will play a very important song by Gil Scott Heron to end the meeting, which will give you a chance to save the chat. So George, please stop the video.
Can I say one